obviously my wife knows me. And so like when we go to the grocery store and I am checking out and flirting with the gal at the register, what does that communicate to my wife? You know, that I would be flirting with somebody else. Or if we're walking down the street or whatever, and I am checking out this girl or checking out that, girl, objectifying them, what am I communicating to my wife? Obviously, I'm not communicating to her that she's my standard of beauty, because if she was, my attention, my desire, my interest would be with my wife. My wife knows when I am loving her. I spend time with her. I enjoy being with her, talking about things that concern her, things that maybe are home, what we're going to do with it. If your wife truly is your standard of beauty, what it does, and I like to say it out loud to myself or say it to myself quietly, it really, by communicating to myself or talking to myself that my wife, Sue, is my standard of beauty, it stops me from coveting or wanting something that isn't mine. Why would I even go there in my thoughts? Why would I even go there in my mind looking after another woman when I am married to the most beautiful woman in my world, because she is my standard of beauty till the day I die. We got married when we were 22, 23, and today we're 68 and 69. And I can honestly say to myself that my wife is my standard of beauty. And I do that to stop myself from looking elsewhere and to remind myself that, yes, she is, because she is my standard of beauty, I need to have eyes only for her. And it just stops me from looking elsewhere, coveting that which is not mine. Okay.
So when a guy on a more, let's say, practical level, a guy wants to get to that, like you said, I want my wife to believe that. Mm-hmm. What are some of the little steps that you've seen yourself take and other men take that has helped them achieve that?
So the first thing is you've got to know her love language and start speaking it. And so that's really incredibly important. Another thing is that what my biggest struggle with was just being selfish. I think a lot about Mark and Mark's needs, and until I came through this ministry, whatever it takes, I didn't really understand how selfishness and pride was destroying the spirit of oneness that we need to have as husband and wife. So even though I put away porn and masturbation, and I feel like I put that in a shoebox and stuck it up on a shelf and wasn't doing it anymore, really our relationship really did not change that much until I began to understand how at the root of those actions of porn and masturbation, the root of that, or any other action, whether it's gambling, having affairs, whatever, the root of that is selfishness and pride. And when soon I began to understand how that was so strong in my life, we still struggled a lot. And so as we began to address selfishness and pride, it began to help me treasure her and cherish my wife. And that was really important. And I would say one thing that I think we tend to overlook, and that makes us really struggle, is we really truly don't understand that when we become Christ followers, the fruit in our life needs to change. And what I mean by that, James, is that I'm going to go back to Galatians 5:22 and 23. And, preceding that verse in the Bible, it talks about the fruit of the flesh. But when you get to that, it's laying it out and say, you know what, if you are a Christ follower, the fruit that should be coming out of you is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. And I began to think about how I was relating to my wife And am I truly a Christ follower? And if so, am I speaking to her in a loving way? Am I when I come home at night from work, am I a joyful person to be with? Do I come home and get angry at my wife because things aren't perfect? Or when I walk through the door, do I say, hey, hi, honey, I love you. Wow, it looks like you need some help. And maybe take out the garbage and do those things and engage in family. Am I gentle? Am I good with my wife? And am I good and gentle with our children? And if you truly are committed to living for your life for the Lord, I don't think this fruit just automatically appears on your tree when you say, okay, I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I think this is something that you have to nurture and you have to grow and you make choices. I choose to be a man of love. I choose to love my wife and my children. I choose to be patient. I choose to be long-suffering. I choose, and because I choose to do that, it's going to show. And I think that as you bring this into your life, as you choose to do that, your wife is going to respond to you. She's going to respond to that new attitude. A man who shows the fruit of the Spirit in his life and really tries to cultivate that every day is really a man who is Christ-like. If Jesus Christ were to walk through that door, we would all be drawn to him, right? Mm-hmm. Doesn't that make sense?
Absolutely.
So the more that we're like Jesus Christ, the more our wife will be drawn to us. And the less that we're like Jesus Christ, the more there's going to be her hands are going to come up, or her heart's going to, there's going to be a wall there. It's like, I don't think this is a guy I really married. I thought he was truly a believer. I thought he truly was a godly man, and the fruit of the Spirit would be evident there. I began to realize that there's only really two ways to live this life if you're married. You can be happily married, or you can be miserably married. That's a question I started asking others. Are you happily married, or are you miserably married? Because if you're miserably married, there's nothing good about it. It just stinks. I have another word for it, but it just stinks. And so, so that's a great question, James. So on one hand, you have a young man who's made a choice. He knows he has the tools to walk in freedom, and he makes that choice to walk in freedom and not go back to porn and masturbation. He's basically given those desires over to God, trusting that God will meet all his needs. And he's made a commitment. He's learned how to reach out and ask for help when he is challenged, when he is tempted, that God's grace is sufficient. God is able to help him walk in freedom. You have a man like that, and then you have a man who's maybe been through the weekend, and he feels like, you know what, well, I'm not going to get married for a while yet, so it really probably won't hurt if I occasionally give in to porn and masturbation. And so he makes these little compromises. He may go into marriage and say that to his bride, you know what, well, I used to do this all the time, but now I only do it occasionally. But what it's really saying is that to his new bride is that, you know what, I'm really, for the most part, I'm really pretty trustworthy, and you can count on me for the most part, but maybe when things get a little tough, and maybe when you're pregnant, or maybe when you're feeling down and you don't feel like being intimate with me, well, I'll just go and look at porn and take care of my needs then too. So never really, if you don't have the ability to do that before marriage, I think you're deluding yourself, or you're being very dishonest with your ability to do it as you go into marriage. It's gonna hang with you, and you're taking it right with you, and the only person you're hitting is yourself. Believe me, gentlemen, it will not fall off if you don't use it.
It's true. It won't fall off.